Good afternoon. This is Eric Bell with NAMA Government Affairs Division, and I want to welcome you to our fly-in briefing webinar for the 2017 NAMA Washington, D.C. fly-in. Thank you to everyone who is on the call. We have lots of folks on the call with us today who are going to be attending the fly-in this July 25th and 26th. We got a record number of attendees, and we want to just thank everyone for their participation in this webinar and the fly-in and past fly-ins. First of all, we want to say thank you to our sponsor of the actual webinar, which is Canteen. So thank you for your support. Canteen is always there with us when we need folks on the advocacy front to assist us in our work at state, local, and federal levels. In fact, I think Canteen has 10 to 15 attendees coming to the fly-in this year in Washington, D.C. So thank you very much, Canteen, for your support. Also, special thanks to the NAMA Foundation. The NAMA Foundation is the sponsor of our education program for the fly-in, which is going to be part of this webinar. After I am finished going through the different aspects of the fly-in coming up, we will have a presentation by Amy Showalter of the Showalter Group. Amy's education work during the fly-in activities, pre-fly-in, during the fly-in, and post-fly-in are all sponsored by the NAMA Foundation. So thank you very much to the NAMA Foundation for the support for our education program surrounding the fly-in for our grassroots advocacy. We'll go ahead and dig into the fly-in briefing, specifically as it relates to some of the specifics around the event, so that we can get to Amy's presentation as soon as possible. Conference dates and logistics. Obviously, the conference is taking place on Thursday, July 25th and Wednesday, July 26th. It will begin a little earlier this year. For those who have attended before, please take note. We will start Tuesday around noon and end Wednesday around 4 p.m. The conference hotel is the Fairmont, as you see in the picture on the slide here. However, the good news is we have expanded beyond the Fairmont because we have had such great participation and response for participation. The Fairmont does have rooms still available. However, they are not in our room block, so they may be a little higher priced. You can also go to the Melrose in Washington, D.C. and obtain rooms there in a room block that we have. It is only a few blocks away from the Fairmont. Transportation. As with every year, we've recommended that attendees fly in and out of Washington, D.C. through Washington Reagan National Airport. It's much closer to D.C. than Dulles Airport or BWI, so we recommend that you fly in and out for convenience to Washington Reagan National Airport. Do not worry about transportation after you've arrived for the event. NAMA will coordinate all transportation to and from events during the conference, except to and from the airport. Further logistics as it relates to attire. Dress for the conference is coat and tie for men and business suit dress for women. Wear comfortable dress shoes. The flooring in the House and Senate office buildings is marble, so it's very hard on the feet, so please wear comfortable dress shoes. Be prepared for the heat. It's going to be the end of July in Washington, D.C. It is going to be hot and it is going to be muggy. So please be prepared for the heat and know that it will be very hot, likely, during the fly-in. On site, we will forward the Government Affairs staff contact information to all attendees by Outlook. An event app will be available with cell phones, text, email capabilities for all staff. And as usual, fastest response time and from our staff will be by texting us during the event. Educational and background materials will be provided. Many of you in your response to Amy's questions early on about the event and what you would like to take away from the event and some input from previous events mentioned obtaining the educational background materials earlier on the issues that we'll be talking about on the Hill. Amy is going to talk about that later in the presentation. However, you will be receiving those issue packets earlier this year in time to so that you can educate yourself on the issues you'll be talking to elected officials about. The briefing will be provided for Capitol Hill meetings at our education session that Amy Showalter will be doing on site at Tuesday during the event. Further logistics, Capitol Hill meetings. When we do our Capitol Hill meetings on Wednesday of the fly-in, NAMA's hired a professional firm to arrange the meetings. Your schedule will be provided to you at the fly-in by the app that we'll be using for the event. Do not fret. The meetings may not be scheduled, some of them, until the day before the actual fly-in. This is how Washington works with busy schedules for members of Congress. Know that this professional firm will make it work without a glitch, and the meetings will go well. Attendees will be split into groups by state and regions. So if you are from a state, say Kentucky, you will be with everyone from Kentucky, and we'll meet with your 2 senators from Kentucky, their offices, and also your representatives from Kentucky. Attendees will pass through metal detectors to obtain access to the Capitol Hill office building, so please be aware that you'll have to go through metal detectors to obtain access to the office building, so please try to remember that when packing. Maps of buildings will be provided. Sometimes the buildings and room numbers can be difficult to find in some of the buildings, so we will be providing maps, as well as the app will have a map to tell you how to get to and from your meetings. Luggage, lots of folks have questions about luggage when they're trying to get back to the hotel and then back to the airport to depart the event. The hotel is in downtown DC. Luggage will be left at the hotel before departure for the Hill. Luggage can be retrieved by returning to the hotel following the Capitol Hill Day and before your flight back out of town, and the buses can be provided will be provided back to the hotel to get that luggage. Information on registrants. We are excited that we have broken every previous record through the help of our captains program, our 50 folks who volunteered to be event captains to drive attendance for this event. We are at 289 registered attendees from 40 states all across the country. This map does not have Nebraska colored in. However, we have now obtained an attendee from Nebraska, so we have 40 states and Washington, D.C. represented. We're hoping to reach 300 attendees. We have just a record number of attendees there again, and very excited about the attendance this year. It's really going to make a positive impact in protecting and promoting the industry like we've never done before. It's going to be an exciting event. The more and more people we get and the more and more involvement further down into companies is very exciting. So thank you to everyone who is participating. Information on the registrants will go to everyone so that you're able to get in touch with folks that'll be there so you can chat back and forth with them through the app or other ways. A conference agenda, quick overview. On Tuesday, we'll start a networking lunch that will be optional. We had a couple of comments following the previous fly-in about wanting more opportunities to network with folks in the industry. So this is a networking lunch we've added, which is optional at the beginning. Education training sessions will start earlier from 2 to 4. The first education training session will be from 2 to 3. The second one will be from 3 to 4. They will be split into separate sessions based on your experience, attendees' experience in advocacy. And if you've done advocacy before, you will be in one class, and if you have not, you'll be in another class. Captain's Roundtable will be an event specifically put together for our captains. Welcome reception will be held at 5 o'clock for everyone attending, and then an opening dinner at 6. We have 2 exciting after-dinner events that we've just added. One will be a boat tour with views of the Washington monuments, and the other will be called Connections in Craft Beer, which we have teamed up with the Beer Institute to provide us with information on local bars that may have craft beer service and may also brew craft beer in the DC area. So this will be a Connections in Craft Beer program where you're welcome to meet your colleagues and do some fun networking. Wednesday, July 26th, breakfast at 6 a.m. as normal, early. Buses will depart for Capitol Hill at 7 a.m. from the back of the hotel, or the front of the hotel, excuse me. There'll be a group photo on the Capitol steps when we arrive, so I would ask everyone when you get off of your buses to please stay together, and we'll get a group photo on the Capitol steps. Following that group photo, we'll go to Capitol Hill for visits with our U.S. House members and senators' offices from 9 to 3. We have a Capitol Hill industry event, which those who have attended before will be familiar with this, from 12 to 2. This will have lunch for attendees, a light lunch, and we'll have vending machines, micro market set up, and also office coffee service set up so that members of Congress and their staff can be educated on the industry. We will also be working with Operation Homefront, which I'll talk about later, to fill backpacks with school supplies for military children at that event. A post-event happy hour, which is optional, will be held between the hours of 3:30 and 5:30 by Vagabond, hosted by Vagabond, and we'll be getting a location to you for that event as well, which is another opportunity for further networking. The event concludes. Transportation and luggage logistics will be forwarded to you concerning those specifics. Now on to the congressional visits. We'll be meeting with members of Congress in their offices. We have meeting goals. We will get those to you in your packets. The identification process is done by state, and your group selection will be done by state and your member of Congress where you live. And we will do all the logistics and let you know that it will all work through an app on your phone. Background and preparation materials, as I said earlier, will be provided to you prior to the conference. We'll have issue briefs on the issues that we will be discussing during the conference. I can tell you the 3 issues will be related to elimination of the death tax, a lowering of the corporate tax rate, and then supporting regulatory relief bill that has passed the House and it's in the Senate. It's passed a committee in the Senate, and we are working on getting it to the Senate floor to go to the President and hopefully passage in the Senate. NAMA has been working on this legislation for probably 8 to 10 years, so we're very happy and feel like we're close on this issue. Background information, as I said, will be forwarded to you. The attendees are divided into groups with leaders for each group. The groups will have signs by state, and we'll let you know who your leaders are in your groups. As I said, they'll be grouped by the state of residence, not specifically if you work somewhere. You may live in Oklahoma and work in Texas or vice versa. You will be grouped with your state of residence of where you live, because that is how they determine your member of Congress and who you will be meeting with. Targeted visits with your members of Congress. As I said, NAMA is scheduling all congressional meetings. If you're a friend of your member of Congress, you know your member of Congress, please do not try to contact them to schedule a meeting. We will be handling those meetings. However, it would be very helpful to us if we know that. So if you could contact us and let us know, you can shoot us an email, and we can use that when setting up the meetings. It will help us get a meeting more likely with the member of Congress. As I said earlier, we will have 3 asks for the members of Congress to help us with, and 2 are related to a reduction of taxes, and the other is related to regulatory relief on the federal level. We'll provide briefing materials prior to the conference. As I said earlier, a reminder, meetings can be scheduled all the way up until the day of the event. Therefore, the app is going to be important, and don't fret, don't get nervous. This is how Capitol Hill in Washington works on a regular basis. We will be providing members of Congress and staff with your business card at the beginning of meetings, so please remember to bring a stack of business cards to the fly-in. Some important recommendations. Leverage social media. We're going to be forwarding some social media tweets to you, some Facebook requests to push out information about your participation in our grassroots advocacy at the fly-in. We ask you to update your websites and Facebook pages with pictures from the event and tweet NAMA Fly-In, the hashtag NAMA Fly-In. Wear name tags that we're providing for you at the event. That way, when you get on the Hill, folks will know you're with NAMA, and they will know you're with the industry, and it'll present very well for us within the House and Senate buildings. Bring 100 business cards so you have enough business cards to give out to staff and members of Congress. As I said earlier, wear comfortable dress shoes, not the shoes that are pictured on the slide here, but comfortable dress shoes. Exercise patience with logistics, including security in the buildings. Many times there'll be long lines going into the building, so please have patience going through the metal detectors. Wear limited metal and jewelry during congressional visits because you will be going in and out of buildings with metal detectors, and every time you have to go through, you can hold up the lines and hold up yourself for meetings that you may be on a tight time frame for. So please limit the metal and jewelry that you wear during those visits. Download the app when you arrive at the event or prior to the event, and we'll send you information on how to do that. Download the NAMA staff contacts that we'll be sending to you, and refrain from bringing gifts for elected officials or staff. Even if you're a friend of your elected official and you want to bring a gift from your business, a coffee mug or something that has your logo on it, please refrain from that. There are House and Senate ethics rules that we must abide by. We will provide a small gift that you can give to the member of Congress and or the staffer that will meet the rules so that you're not going empty-handed, and they will understand they can accept those under the rules. And last but not least, please have fun. This is going to be a great event. We've got a great crowd. We always just have a great impact on Washington for the industry when we come to D.C., but most of all, I think a lot of folks have fun, and we want it to be fun at the same time. Giving back. It's a very important part of our advocacy work is giving back to the community. And last year, we started a partnership with Operation Homefront through their Back to School Brigade, where we purchased school supplies and backpacks to support military families and their children who are in need of school supplies and backpacks. We donated, through the help of a lot of you who attended last year and are attending again this year, over 100 backpacks to children in need. We ask you, join us again for this giving back part of our program, which is very important for the fly-in. Purchase a backpack, purchase school supplies, and donate them to the children and military families who are in need. Last but not least, I want to thank our sponsors, our event sponsors, Coca-Cola and G&J Brokerage, and our platinum sponsors, our gold sponsors, silver sponsors, and bronze sponsors. We could not do this event without our sponsors. I will say we have increased our sponsor numbers by 22% this year, almost 25% in revenue from sponsors this year. Thank you very much. We can't do it without you, so we just really appreciate what you do for us. And that ends my part of the presentation. I'd like to introduce Amy Showalter of the Showalter.
Eric, and thanks to everybody on the phone for making a couple decisions. Number one, to participate today so that you are exceedingly comfortable, confident, compelling advocates when you are in D.C. in July, and making the decision to move to that step and engage in the Take the Hill event. You have to be really intentional if you want to be good at advocacy, and you have to take advantage of these opportunities. And looks like every question has been answered, every detail has been taken care of by your team, so that's fantastic. So it is going to be fun for you, because you're not going to have to worry about a lot when you're there. So I thank you for making the decision to be really intentional. So we want to talk about grassroots, why it matters, what to expect, and really what's in it for you, because you should get something out of it. I think you should. It should be rewarding for you. So why do we do grassroots? Now, let me give you a bit of, I'm going to give you some data dumps here just to remind you that the more things change, the more they stay the same, okay? So let's go back to some old school stuff. Research I conducted probably more than 10 years ago now, where I asked state lawmakers, many of whom are members of Congress now, and this was a random sample of state lawmakers where we had about a 19% response rate, so we were really thrilled with that. We asked them what the habits were of effective advocacy groups, all right? So here's what they said. Whoops. Number one, people, right? Having people engaged. And one of the funny verbatims that they mentioned in this was that, oh, it's the regular people. It's not the, I don't know what they meant by that, but they said, oh, it's the regular people. You know, they're the ones that really, make a difference, who we really like to hear from. Number two, fair or unfair, they said money makes a difference, not just tax money, but money to communicate, money to hire qualified staff. Next, they mentioned having good lobbyists. That's important, obviously. A professional lobby team really matters. And being organized matters a lot. So your ability to do what you're doing in D.C., when you put the word out, can you organize? Can you get a group of people to engage? So fast forward a few years, and Mike Lord at Wake Forest University asked asked congressional staff, asked them what was most effective when it comes to passing legislation. You know, the content and the passage of legislation. Look at that first one there, the passage of legislation, grassroots, the people, grassroots matters a lot. When it comes to the content of legislation, how it's going to look when it's effective, when it sunsets, or when it expires, as we say, the professional lobbying staff is very critical to that process. So that's why you're so important. It's so important you work together in this, because your professional team, Eric and the gang, can definitely tell the legislators what is important and what it should look like, but you're going to be the ones that determine whether that goes through or not to a great degree, all right? We also looked at what the most influential type of communication is, going back to my research. Okay, meetings, really important a long time ago. And then I thought, what kind of constituents the most influential? Because I don't believe all constituents are equal. I don't believe it, and the research bears it out. I'm going to share even more research with you that bears that out. So family members, number one, legislators make decisions based on what's going on in their life, what their family tells them to do. It's unfortunate many times that their family members are not experts in legislative issues and know nothing about it, but if they have an opinion and it matters to them and it affects them in some way, they're paying attention. Their personal friends, the people that were there for them before they were an elected official, before they had this power of being an elected official. And then the campaign workers, the third most important type of constituent to them. So if you fall in any of those categories, it's important to let your lawmakers, especially if you've worked on their campaign, you may not know them particularly well, but if you've worked on their campaign, it doesn't hurt to let them know that. And these other small business owner, CEO of large company, interest group leader, those pieces, those all were kind of tied for the next most prevalent response. But think about that. If you're a small business owner and you're also a personal friend, you've got some turbocharged influence. If you're a small business owner and you've worked on a campaign, you've got some turbocharged influence. So there is a hierarchy, shall we say. And I think the hierarchy is even more prevalent now than it used to be, because there's so much noise in the world, and we're in a world of hyperabundant content. So people who are trusted, who are known by that lawmaker, really matter. Okay, fast forward a few years. How do you prefer to learn about issues from advocacy organizations? Look here, constituent meetings. Okay, constituent meetings, lobbyist meetings, all right? Okay, now let's look at some research from the Congressional Management Foundation going forward a couple more years. Congressional staff were asked what tactics have a lot of positive influence on your boss, the lawmaker's decision-making process. In-person visits. That's you, representative of a constituent group. That's you, okay? So you see a pattern here? Now, let's talk about social media and that impact. Because as Eric said, you're going to be leveraging that tool as you move forward and at the Take the Hill event. So my colleague and I have always had this discussion about, it should be a listening tool. It should really enhance democracy. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's more of a broadcasting tool. And I think we're finding that to a degree. Not that lawmakers do not listen to it, but they like to talk at you a little bit more, okay? So this is research from the Congressional Management Foundation research, and they found that they asked congressional staff, how important are these different social media tools? Now look at Facebook, communicating the members' views. 20% of them said it's very important for communicating my views, me as a member of Congress. However, only 8% said it was very important to understand the constituents' views. Same thing with YouTube. Similar margins with Twitter. Okay, so this tells me reading between the research lines, as I call it, it's considered a bit of a broadcasting tool. And that's okay, because as they broadcast, you can engage with them and say, hey, I agree with that. Good job. You can engage in that, but they're going to broadcast on that a little more than they are listen on it. Now, same organization, Congressional Management Foundation. In your opinion, how important are the following for understanding constituents' views? Look at the first one, attending events in the district or state. 77% said it's very important. Personalized messages, in-person town hall meetings, okay? So look at that, attending events, in-person town hall meetings. I mean, look at how 77% said it's very important. 57% of the town hall meetings, in-person interaction, very important. So we see, and the social media pieces fall down. They're a little bit more difficult, I think. And the key word that I think is understanding constituents' views. It's hard to understand in a tweet. Your social media is really, really terrific for calling out the good deeds of legislators and letting them know that you're watching them and so forth. But it's still the in-person, the face-to-face contact that really makes a difference. I'm going to share one other, and that's why your DC meeting and this approach to grassroots that you're undertaking as a strategic initiative is really, really important and the right thing to do. This research Dr. Rhodes and I conducted a few years ago that substantiates this even more. And it's really fun because what we did is we looked at groups on the Fortune Power 25 list of the most influential lobbying groups. It's everybody from the Teamsters to the National Association of Broadcasters to the U.S. Chamber to NFIB. So really prominent organizations. And we looked at the results of their influence tactics. And we looked at undecided legislators. We said, give me 2 undecided legislators that you tried to persuade on an issue. And I want one who you successfully influenced, and then the other one one that you successfully influenced and one that you were not successful in influencing. So I wanted a positive result and a negative result. We had over 70 independent variables that we put into that formula to see what they did and if things mattered, you know, in terms of the tenure of the legislator, their district makeup, so many things. Here's what we found that really matters. One thing, kind of hard for all of us to control, right? But it's the legislator's margin of victory. The more they win, the bigger the margin of victory, the more likely they are to be persuaded to change their mind, because that's really where this comes down to. But look at number 2, lobbyist similarity. Look at 3 and 4. Number of face-to-face meetings. The more face-to-face meetings you have with elected officials, undecided or reverse elected officials, the more likely you are to change their mind. Also, the number of key influentials. Key influentials are people like yourself, opinion leaders in the district, business owners, local elected officials, leaders of charitable organizations in the district, and so on. Again, this is why we're taking this approach, because the research, it's a research-based approach. It's common sense, but it's also grounded in what we know works from a scientific perspective, okay? And last but not least, maximum PAC contribution, yes. So, and I was a little bit gratified to see this result, because when we ask legislators what influences them, they'll never say this. But when you look at the result and you plug in 70 variables, one of them being the Jamaica PAC contribution, another variable being how much was that PAC contribution, it does impact the level of persuasion you can have, because it is cementing a relationship. A PAC contribution is very simply a public declaration that you support this individual. And we all like that, don't we? We all like people to publicly, this is why social media is what it is today, my friends, because it's very public and people, their parts of their brain light up when they engage on it. So it's something that, it's kind of an old school way of making their brains light up, right? So that's a part of the equation as well. And we also know that grassroots activity and really not just activity, but strategic grassroots engagement is important because legislators notice this. They notice it. National Journal conducted a poll of congressional insiders, that's everybody from congressional staff to media and so forth, and they asked them which organizations are the most effective on Capitol Hill. And they, you know, NFIB, Rifle Association, CUNA's, the Credit Union National Association, Heritage Foundation. So the Republicans had one group, the Democrats had another group. They were both pretty similar, okay? But here's the interesting part. They asked them why they thought they were so effective. Look at that last bullet point. Constituents from home are head and shoulders above other interest groups. I love that. And you know why I love it? Because it shows that they actually are paying attention. They compare you to other groups. They're looking at your credibility, your ease to work with, your communications. Are you nice? Now, they should be the same way towards you. I get that. And I've even, as I've gotten older, I'm more adamant about that than anything else, is that, you know, they need to behave themselves. But I think that, but they are comparing you, fair or unfair. This is a competitive environment. It's a competitive influence environment. And you want, when they think of NAMA, you want them to have a really good mental image, a great brand, a great legislative brand in their mind. Like, wow, I can work with them. They're good people. That foot power and financial power, we know what that means. That means grassroots as well as financial power to get the message out, to communicate, and also to provide campaign contributions. So we see a couple grassroots pieces in here as well in terms of why groups are so effective. And I think it's really important to study groups that do a really good job in this, and you all are right in that category, because if we study merely what's average, we will remain merely average. We have to push it and look for what are the top organizations doing. One of my Amyisms I thought of when I was thinking about this topic, I put pen to paper. I said, you will not win more issues, gain more grassroots participation, or raise more PAC money by doing things reasonably well most of the time. You cannot dabble in excellence. And this is why it's so gratifying to see your Take the Hill Day event really grow and prosper, have increased attendance, because you're really at that level where people are, those numbers people notice. I'll talk about volume in a little bit. People notice that, and groups that play at a high level do these kinds of things. All right, so I would say that you're definitely not dabbling. You're right, which is good. But we always want to compare ourselves to that, and that's one of the reasons we do these fly-ins, because that face-to-face contact is really, really important. All right, so what can you expect? Okay, what can you expect from not just the DC event, but also as you go forward? Because I contend that what we're doing in this webinar, that's why I'm so delighted you're participating, is because this is just one step in the journey. This is just the beginning for some of you. Others of you are here to sharpen the saw, so that's fantastic. But I want to share with you what you can expect as NAMA takes you on this journey. So when we are in DC, I'm going to go into more detail on these items, on these characteristics of excellent grassroots engagement and how it's going to affect you. I'm going to give you not just the what, but the why and the how. And what's fun about the DC event, too, is that we'll be talking about some in-depth persuasion and influence tactics that you will be using when you talk to legislators. And also, it's a twofer. You can use these tactics. They are safe to use in your daily life without a trained supervisor or trained professional supervising you. You can, in the safety of the work environment, use these as well. So, and I was thinking of this, I was like, what would I call these things? There's laws, there's rules, but I like the canons, right, because it almost has this theological sense to it, okay? So the canons of grassroots influence, I'm going to go over each of these, and when we're in DC, as I said, I will put these on turbocharge for you. I'm going to tell you how to engage in each of these, but let's talk about why they're really important. Number one, vivid information. Vivid information. Vivid information is simply proximity. It's location, location, location. Think real estate, physical real estate. What did I just show you? Why did I do that data dump with you in the beginning? Because I wanted you to see the importance of proximity, that it matters in proximity. Vivid information is anything that's close, that's in my space. And face-to-face meetings are vivid, okay? This is the same slide I showed earlier, but as a reminder, how important are the following? Attending events in the district, state, that's vivid. In-person town hall meetings, that's vivid, okay? District state office hours where people come by to meet with you, that's vivid. Telephone town hall meetings can be because you're voice-to-voice on there, okay? So all vivid types of information. Now, I'll give you a little bit of taste of what we'll talk about in DC. Why is FTF, also known as face-to-face on Planet Amy, why is face-to-face the gold standard? Why is it so important? Well, we can do all these things face-to-face that we cannot do on the phone, and definitely not in email or social media, okay? But the last one, I apologize for the extra period there, the number 6, it demonstrates you're willing to make the effort. Because it is so easy to send an email, to post on social media, because that's so easy, when you show up and you take time away from your business to show that you are sacrificing other things, other opportunities, to meet with a lawmaker on their turf, it shows I'm willing to make the effort. I care enough that I'm willing to make the effort. And that counts for something. it counts for all of us when people want to encourage us to adopt a certain path or to buy something from them, right? The personal face-to-face contact shows the effort, and that's what really matters. That's really what really matters. And lastly, on the Vivid piece, and I'll be showing some other portions of this, I wrote a book called The Underdog Edge a few years ago where I interviewed ordinary, quote-unquote, people. They were quite extraordinary, actually, who changed the mind of a legislator. Not just had a good conversation, but they got an undecided or opposed legislator to change their mind about an issue. And we found all of these elements of underdog influence here on the screen, and Vivid being one of them, okay? They definitely used electronic influence tools to mobilize, to educate, to communicate, but when it came to the day of decision, the hour of decision, it's definitely a Vivid encounter. It was one of the main things we picked up after we interviewed 40-some individuals, and we interviewed the lawmakers that they persuaded. So I'm getting it from two sides here. All right, another canon of grassroots influence is consistency. Just doing it over and over, right? Consistency compounds upon itself in a great way. And so part of this is being seen often, in the district. You'll see a lawmaker in D.C., but are you finding opportunities to take 15 minutes and drop by the town hall meeting and say hello before or after the meeting, or to attend the chamber breakfast where the lawmaker is speaking, to visit their campaign headquarters, whatever it is? Are you being seen often? Are you consistent? It's real easy to have one meeting with a lawmaker and they never see you again, and so that communicates to them that you're probably not as sincere and convicted about what you're communicating with them on. And again, they're comparing you to other groups. Who are those other groups that are engaged, and are they meeting with them? Are they engaging in the canon of consistency? All right. The canon of authenticity. This is really huge now because of it's always been important. I mean, we used to call it AstroTurf. Now it's the social media trolls or whatever. So we know that authentic engagement is incredibly important. Years ago, the Congressional Management Foundation, one of their research projects, found that 75% of congressional staff believed that most grassroots email campaigns were generated by a robot or something, that no real people were behind them at all. And this is because a lot of people sent form emails and so forth, and you can still send form emails and so forth, and they can come from a real person. I believe they have the software now to mitigate this impression a bit, but I've always contended, though, that lawmakers, when they agree with you, they believe you're authentic. When they disagree with you, they think you're a troll. So it's a little, they're a little disingenuous about it, but authentic advocacy is extremely important. It always has been, but I think it's becoming more vital today because of the hyperabundant noise that we have right now. Next, narrative is another canon of grassroots influence. I'm going to talk in detail about this in DC because the reason narrative is really important is because you'll have talking points from your professional lobbying staff. You will have plenty of info. You'll know all you need to know about an issue and how to explain that to a lawmaker. But you're the only one that knows your story. And the reason your story is powerful is because it is scientifically proven. There is science behind narrative, which I'll go over more in detail in DC. Another reason, number two, the reason I love narrative is because it's yours. You can remember it. Unless you lie and fabricate a lot, you can remember your own story. You're not going to trip over your words. It's going to roll off your tongue. You know your story. Number three, it's yours, so nobody can copy it. It's unique. It is authentic. See, when we study authenticity, we know there's about 10 to 12 elements of authenticity that the research tells us is these are the things. Kind of we know it when we see it, but there are actual things you can do to ramp that up. And no, I'm not being inauthentic by telling you how to be more authentic. But narrative is one of them. Narrative is an element of authenticity. John Clervius from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, just conducted research with state lawmakers where he found that it used to be that email volume was what really made lawmakers move in a certain direction, right? They looked at how many letters are coming in, how many emails are coming in, and that proved to indicate sentiment in their district. He's found now that that's changing and that they're looking more at trust versus email. So trust is trumping email volume. And the reason it is, in the verbatims from the lawmakers, is because they said that when they trust people who they hear from personally and whose stories they hear, because they said, a story is something that the organization isn't giving them talking points on. I know it's real. And I trust that more than the volume of form emails. So I'll be talking more about this in DC, but don't panic if you don't have, is it important to know those talking points and to know the issue? Sure it is. It's more important to know your story. It's more important to take those talking points that the team gives you in those position papers and then just think to yourself, okay, in a broad sense, how does this relate to me? Who does this affect? And not just me and my bottom line, but does it affect the people I serve? What about the people I serve? What about jobs in my district? How does it affect all of that? And really connect the dots on that. Narrative has to be strategic. It has to have a point. So you are going to need to combine the two. But your story is really the most important thing. So if you haven't memorized the talking points, that's okay. Memorize your story. You don't have to think much about your story. And again, you can, without supervision of a trained professional, practice that at home. Okay? So something you can do, and narrative is super important in business too. Okay? So we'll be talking in detail about how to tell a better story. See, everybody tells stories, but you need to tell a better story because your opponents are telling stories too. They're telling stories as to why the death tax should be enacted. Well, actually, they're calling it the estate tax, the rich people's estate tax. We're calling it the death tax. Okay? And let's look at another reason why narrative is important. Again, Congressional Management Foundation research from 2014. They asked congressional staff, how often do you experience the following behaviors in constituent meetings? And these are all things that, probably are not great that people do in meetings. Look at the next to last one. More than half of the people they meet with do not tell a story. I'm incredulous at this because I know it's a canon of grassroots influence is that you tell a story to get your point, to help the person remember what you're talking about and to be persuasive. So they want the story. What's your story, okay? Kevin McCarthy said this, when you go in, tell a story and give your name. There's nothing better than an elected official who quotes you during a debate or committee hearing. Tell your stories so that we can tell them as well. See, they want a story to tell too because they may not have personal experience with your issue. They don't know what it's like to run a business like yours and automated merchandising. They don't know. But if you tell a story, they can be a part of that, and the reason narrative is super important is because it allows the legislators who are for you to easily explain that issue to their colleagues. And legislators do lobby each other, believe me. Okay? All right, they lobby each other. All right, next, another canon of grassroots influence, relationships. This is a part of NAMIF's grassroots strategy, is to encourage those of you who want to go to that next level to develop positive, credible working relationships with your elected officials. Because again, as legislators are increasingly accessible and public, they're actually almost winnowing access to them more. You have to type in a CAPTCHA code when you're sending an email and to make sure you're not a robot, these kinds of things. So, and we see that some lawmakers are not conducting town halls because they don't like the atmosphere there. So it's getting a bit more difficult. But if I have a good working relationship and I'm a trusted resource, then I can move forward. Again, in Underdog Edge, what did I find? With all of my underdogs, they all sought to build relationships with their influence prospect. None of them actually had a pre-existing relationship. That's one thing I had to find out, that, well, maybe they knew these people anyways, and it was easy for them to go in and change their mind. I think only 1 or 2 out of 40 people did have an existing relationship. So they knew that they needed to build familiarity and a sense of comfort, with that person, so they would be comfortable disagreeing with them and sharing their views. Greg Casey, who used to work for U.S. Senator Scott Brown, said this: "The moral of the story, it's all about relationships. We get 100 calls a day on different issues. We have to distinguish which ones we get involved in and become active with, and that is when a personal relationship stands out." That's when a personal relationship stands out. So you want to make it easy for them. You don't want them to have to think about it. You want them to say, "Oh, I know this person. I know them. They employ a lot of people in my district. Yeah, we're going to talk to them. We're going to give them time. We're going to give them access. We're going to listen to what they say, and we may even be persuaded by what they say." One of my underdogs, Bob Boniface, who owned a he was NFIB's small business champion one year, and he's from Aurora, Illinois, and he worked with then Speaker Denny Hastert on an issue, and he said you have to become known and become their friend because they don't want to make their friends mad. You can't just come in when you have a problem. I mean, think about that. Think about people in your business or relatives, God forbid. They only come to you when they need something. They only come to you when there's a problem. We don't automatically extend goodwill to people like that are just making contact when they need something. Now, do legislators work for the public? Are they public servants? Should they engage at all times, regardless? Should they respond to everyone? Yes. In a perfect world, but we are in a fallen world, not a perfect world. We want to make it easy for them. We don't want them to think too much and decide, oh, should I call this person or this person back? I only have so much time when I'm in the district. Should I meet with the automated merchandising folks, or should I meet with somebody else? We want them to pick you, okay? Patty Ann Moskwa, who owns the Rebel Yankee Tavern on Mackinac Island, who persuaded legislators in a very down economy in Michigan to spend more money on tourism dollars, said, you don't go to a legislator's office and ask for things. I love that. You don't go and ask for things. No, we do, but as she was saying, that's not the first time. That shouldn't be the first time that you engage them. And the last reason, and I will give you NDC specific ways to build relationships, things you can do, 5 minutes a week that you can do to build a relationship and really be a trusted resource to your lawmaker. Another reason that relationship is so powerful is because, as my wonderful colleague said, a recognized manipulative influence tactic is a failed influence tactic. When we recognize that someone is trying to influence us, a wall goes up. We all are resistant to influence to a degree. And even though legislators know that everyone is trying to influence them, the walls go down a little bit when you have a relationship with that individual. I think this insight explains so much about recent elections, because people have recognized the tactics on certain sides of the debate, on both sides really, as to groups that should be just telling facts but are actually trying to influence. So people are pushing back on that. And it's no different with human beings, on a one-to-one level as well. So relationships are terrific because they're not manipulative, especially when you are there to provide, your job is to help. I want you to think of it this way. Some people say, oh, Amy, I don't like selling. It feels like I'm selling. Well, you are selling. You're selling an idea. But you have to believe that you provide value to that lawmaker, that you know something they don't know, or you know something their staff doesn't know. And you want to show that you're there to help them make good public policy decisions. And you have value in that equation. You have something they don't have. You have knowledge, insight, narrative, stories they don't have. So they need you. So view it as, hey, I'm here to help. I want to help this person. I hope they agree with me. I want them to agree with me. But I'm here to help. Next, another canon of influence, the legislative staff issue. And I put issue in quotes because you are not unique at all. Many of you, your questionnaires, you said, have to meet with the staff. And some of you had terrific experiences meeting with staff in the past. Others of you, not so much. Like my doctor said to me once, I always, when I'm since the doctors make me wait in the waiting room, I take the opportunity to quiz them when I meet with them, and they'll ask me what I do, and I'll say, have you ever been to one of your, a lot of medical societies have these advocacy days and go to Capitol Hill. Have you ever done that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I have done that, and I'll never do it again. I said, why not? Well, because I had to go in and meet with some 25-year-old kid with slicked back hair who didn't know much about the issue, and I just thought, I don't know if I'm doing this again. I don't know if this is worth my time. So we have issues with legislative staff, and it's very real. I completely understand it. I know that there are some offices that are run better than others. Some offices where the staff is, and you told me in your surveys, the staff is incredibly interested, very engaged, and others where they're not. Okay, so that's, and we can't control that, but they do have a responsibility to tell their lawmaker at the end of the day who they met with and what they discussed. Okay, they've got to account for their time. They got to show their boss they did something that day. So you want to be on that. You want to be on that list. Another canon of grassroots influence is what I call the Parity Influence Challenge. I have my bobbleheads here for a reason, because bobbleheads tend to nod their heads, right? And they just look like they're agreeing with you all the time. And everything's fine, and love, share, care, sing kumbaya, unicorn, rainbows, all that stuff. Well, my colleague and I did some research with grassroots professionals a couple years ago. We do it every 2 years. So the last iteration of this was in 2016. And we found the same result in 2014, actually. We asked people, are your relationships as an organization, your advocates, your staff, are they getting better or worse with lawmakers? And they said, oh, they're getting better. And then we asked them later on in the research, are legislators more or less open to persuasion? Are they more or less communicative? Are they more or less accessible? Are they more or less flexible when it comes to making decisions? The answers were no, 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 less. Okay? So, as my colleague adroitly intuited, what we have here is what we call parity influence, meaning that there's parity. You're trying to influence the lawmaker. They're trying to influence you. They are trying to influence you, because I contend that if relationships are getting better, they'd probably be voting with you more. And some legislators are. Some relationships are getting better, and they're voting with an organization more. But from an aggregate response, this is what we found. And here's what my colleague had to say about it. He said, powerful people respect peer communicators. No matter the position or title that you have, whether you're a physician, CEO, nonprofit executive, you are the underdog when communicating with a lawmaker. Grassroots influencers need to be nimble, this is you, and ready to engage in peer-level communications by asserting themselves when a legislator is trying to influence them. So watch carefully for signs of skillful counter-influence in your direction, and if you detect it, politely but firmly continue to press your case. It's not over till it's over. These are when legislators say things like, I'm for jobs. I'm for jobs in our district. I'm for jobs. Yeah, I don't like regulatory burdens on businesses either. I don't like that either. Oh yeah, I'm for a better business climate. Yeah, I'm for small business. I'm for small business. Oh, can I come and see your facility? Can I come and see that? Can I meet you with your employees? Oh, great, yeah. But then when you ask them for their vote, they're non-committal or they vote against you. Okay, that's parity influence. So what they're doing is trying to make you feel, they want you to like them, bottom line, okay? When people say, we grow up and we don't care what other people think about us, they care very much what people think about them, okay? We all do we all still do. So just be aware of this. Now, when I am in D.C. with you, I will share with you some other things that legislators say. When you hear, I call it the code of parity influence, when you hear those things, and I'll have a cheat sheet for you, you'll know this is parity influence. I've got to push back. I've got to push back. Oh, did you hear that? I think we have some thunder here. Okay. That means it's a true statement, what I just said, is God is speaking. Okay, the canons of grassroots influence, volume as well. Okay, volume. It's why it's good to have 300 people at your event and to organize those 300 people, because the more people speaking out, it does matter, especially when you've got people there in person. So volume matters. So you want to share the NAMA gospel. You want to share this with your employees. You want to share with other automated merchandising professionals, other companies in this business. You want to let them know about these issues, why they need to engage in grassroots. More is better, okay? More is better in this. okay? The last canon is grit. Grit. Staying at it for the long term. Eric set this up beautifully. We've been working on some of these issues for 8 to 10 years. That's grit. Having to work at this, to constantly educate new legislators, inform them of the impact of legislation, and so forth. To keep your information up to date as to how these things affect you and your company, that takes grit. It takes grit to come to these DC events every year. Right? It takes grit to meet in the district with them. Okay, and that's another thing we found in Underdog Edge. We found that people had been engaged in these influence attempts for a very long time. I think Brad Neitz here, he was with the Wisconsin, he was with the hospital in Wisconsin. He got off, he was able to get a year. He was able to change the mind of somebody in a year. The others you can see, Bob Bennon, he's a small retailer in Oklahoma City, 120 meetings. Bob Boniface, who you just met, 100 meetings. 100 meetings! Okay? I mean, it's amazing that these people knew what their cynosure was, stayed after it, stayed focused, and won. But it takes grit. So I will share with you in DC, how do you get grit? How do you get grit? Because you can develop it, you can make it something that you do. All right. So what's in it for you? What's in it for you to have NAMA, to be engaged in NAMA's grassroots efforts, okay? Well, here's what some of your fellow members say, that having a legislator understand your issues is a huge advantage. It's a huge advantage, because then you can have a different kind of conversation, when you meet with them. So that understanding is the first step towards persuasion. Understanding and awareness, there's about McGuire's chain of persuasion, and I think has 8 or 9 steps. So understanding is step number 2 or 3, and you want that, all right? The on-site personal visits, again, it's vivid information, letting a lawmaker see in a very vivid fashion how you operate, who you affect, the community that you work in, the people you benefit in that community, the employees that you benefit. So all of that, very, very important, and that they found, your fellow members find this very rewarding to have a lawmaker come and see what they do. More proactive legislator outreach. When you go to DC, you do these events, you're going to have legislators probably contacting you more to say, hey, and some of you experienced it, okay? To have legislators say, hey, how should I vote on this? What do you think about this legislation? Here's what Alyssa from Camelot Systems said. Natalie from Dave Reichert's office actually responded to my follow-up email after the fly-in event, and we hosted her for a couple of hours at the office. It was great to show her what a micro market was and for her to experience what a typical vending operation looked like. That was one of the most rewarding experiences because I knew that our efforts had made an impact, and she was engaged in who our industry was, what we do for the community, and how we greatly appreciated her and Dave's support. Okay? Questions for Eric or the team? Okay. If not, I'll just remind you of this, that Mario Cuomo, former New York governor, said this. He said, this democracy respects involvement and rewards it, and disdains aloofness and punishes it. If you stay away from this system, you get hurt by the system. If you go into the system and use it well, you will be rewarded by it. You will be rewarded by it. So I look forward to meeting you live and in person in DC and hearing even more stories of how you're being rewarded by your engagement in the system.
Thank you, Amy. And thanks for everyone being on the call today and staying on the call. About 95% of the folks stayed on the entire time, which is great, which means it has a huge value. So thank you, Amy. And thanks to everyone staying on the call. We look forward to seeing everyone in D.C. July 25, 26, and Amy will expand her work of what she's talking about when you get here for your education sessions. Please continue to promote the event within the industry, and thank you very much, and hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.